My name is Ethan, and I take great pride in keeping my home in good condition. I live in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. Well, it was peaceful until a new neighbor, Marissa, moved in next door. Marissa, a woman who looked like she came straight out of a new neighbor nightmare checklist, with her immaculate blonde bob cut, oversized designer sunglasses, and a permanently furrowed brow, quickly turned my quiet life upside down. At first, it was minor, little annoyances. Are you sure your lawn is getting the proper care? Ethan, it looks a bit overgrown, or that music you're playing is a little loud for a neighborhood like this, don't you think? But before long, things took a turn for the worse. A couple of weeks ago, I caught her casually strolling through my backyard, claiming she was admiring my garden. I don't even have a garden. Then came complaints about my dog, a playful golden retriever puppy who mostly naps, and accusations about the color of my house. Apparently, light brown was too bold for this area. But the real trouble started when she took issue with my pool. I had just had it cleaned and refilled. It sparkled in the summer sun, a perfect escape from the heat. But one afternoon, I heard her voice from the backyard. I stepped outside to find her in a bright red swimsuit, standing by the pool and wrinkling her nose. "This is unacceptable, Ethan," she yelled, pointing her finger at the water. "This pool is filthy. You're ruining the neighborhood with this." My patience snapped. "This is my property, Marissa," I said, trying to stay calm. "The pool was cleaned last week. It's fine." She glared at me, her face turning sour. "Don't talk back to me, young man," she hissed. "I know what you're doing. You think you can get away with this because no one cares, but you're wrong." I was taken aback by her aggression. I firmly told her to leave my property, warning her that if she came back, I'd report her for trespassing. She scoffed and stormed off. "This isn't over," she muttered as she walked away, and I could already feel the tension building for the next round. The next day, I was working from home when I heard a loud banging on my front door. I figured it was just a delivery, but the knocking didn't stop. After a few moments, I muted my video call and went to the door, expecting a package. But to my surprise, there were two police officers standing on my porch, looking uncertain. "Mr. Ethan," one of them said, "we received a report from a concerned neighbor about a hazardous condition at your home. Specifically, they claimed your swimming pool is dangerously contaminated." I couldn't believe it. "That's absurd," I said, gesturing toward my backyard. "My pool is fine. It was cleaned by professionals just last week. I think this is a personal attack." The officers exchanged a glance. "We need to check it out, sir," one said. "It's standard procedure." Reluctantly, I led them through the house and out into the backyard. As we walked out, Marissa appeared at the edge of her property, a smug smile plastered on her face. "See? I told you," she shouted. "It's disgusting. A health risk." The officers approached the pool and dipped a test strip into the water. One of them nodded. "Looks clean to me," he said, eyeing Marissa. "Water's balanced, and there's no visible issue." Her face turned an angry shade of crimson. "You're all in on this," she screamed. "You're protecting him because you know why." Her words left no room for doubt. This wasn't about a pool at all. It was about me. One officer sighed. "Ma'am, calm down. There's no problem here. We're going to have to ask you to stop making these false accusations." But Marissa wasn't having it. "False accusations? I'm protecting this neighborhood," she shouted, completely losing control. She marched past the officers and onto my property. "I'll show you how dirty this pool really is," she yelled, heading straight for the water. Before anyone could stop her, she kicked off her sandals and leapt into the pool, fully clothed. "This is a mess," she shrieked, splashing water everywhere. "You're poisoning all of us." The officers were taken aback at first, but quickly regained their composure. "Ma'am, you're trespassing and interfering with an investigation," one of them said, his voice firm. "You're under arrest." Marissa wasn't ready to go quietly. She thrashed in the water, kicking and screaming. "You can't arrest me for telling the truth," she hollered as they struggled to get a hold of her. It took both officers to drag her out of the pool. She kept squirming, shouting insults, and making wild claims, refusing to cooperate. I stood by, watching the chaos unfold, my emotions a mix of anger, disbelief, and, strangely, a sense of justice. This woman, who had tormented me for months, was finally facing the consequences of her behavior. I pulled out my phone to record the scene, knowing I would need evidence of her outbursts. As the officers pulled her toward the squad car, she shot me a venomous glare. "This isn't over, Ethan," she screamed. "You'll regret this." One of the officers approached me as they were dealing with her. "Mr. Ethan, we're arresting her for trespassing, resisting arrest, and filing a false report," he explained. "We'll also look into possible hate crime charges based on her comments." I nodded, feeling a slight relief. "Thank you, officer," I said. "I appreciate it." The officer then asked if he could inspect my property further. I agreed, glad to comply. As he walked around, he noticed something strange near the fence separating my yard from Marissa's, an almost hidden gate, partly covered by bushes. "What's this?" he asked, pointing to the gate. I shrugged. I didn't even know that was there. I've never seen it before. The officer opened the gate and stepped through, disappearing into Marissa's yard. He came back a few minutes later with a concerned look on his face. "Ethan, you need to see this." I followed him through the gate into Marissa's backyard. He led me to a corner behind a shed where several empty bottles of pool chemicals lay scattered on the ground. The labels were ripped off, but I could tell by the shapes that they were the same chemicals I used. "Someone's been messing with your pool," the officer said, his voice tense. "They've been tampering with the water." It all clicked into place. Marissa wasn't just complaining about my pool, she had been sabotaging it. She'd been actively trying to ruin it, and then used that as an excuse to harass me. The officer took photos and bagged the chemicals for evidence. "We'll test these," he said. "Looks like we got a solid case for vandalism." As the investigation unfolded, the truth came to light. Marissa had not only been tampering with my pool, but had a history of making false reports and harassing her neighbors. I wasn't the first person she targeted. It turned out I had become just another victim of her vindictive behavior. As the investigation continued, the weight of Marissa's actions became undeniable. It wasn't just about petty complaints anymore. It was clear that she had been deliberately causing harm to others for her own twisted sense of control. Neighbors came forward with their own stories, reports of her harassment, false accusations, and attempts to sabotage their properties. She had been a menace, operating behind the guise of righteousness. In the end, the legal consequences caught up with her. Marissa was charged not only with vandalism, but also for making false reports, disturbing the peace, and, in some cases, harassment. The case brought a sense of closure to those who had suffered in silence, including me. I had finally stood up for myself and my property, but the larger victory was the community's recognition that someone had been looking out for the truth. As for me, I felt a strange calm wash over me. The tension that had built up over the past few months finally dissolved. I had my peace back. My home, my pool, and my dog, everything that mattered to me, were safe. But more than that, I'd learned an important lesson about standing up for what's right, even when it feels like the odds are stacked against you. It's not just about protecting your property, but also about protecting your dignity and your community. In the end, that's what really mattered. As the days passed, life slowly returned to normal. I resumed my routine, knowing that the neighborhood was once again peaceful. But the experience had changed me. I no longer felt the need to shrink from conflict. I had found my voice, and I wasn't going to let anyone silence it again.